Finally he said, "We are not mistakes. We are the storm you never expected." The queen's lips curled into a cold smile. She raised both hands and the sky tore open. From the heavens descended her greatest weapon, the Reaver of Bloodlines, a machine older than her throne itself. It was not a ship, not a beast, but a living engine of conquest. Its body writhed with cables that pulsed like veins. Its core burned with the energy of enslaved worlds. Every empire she had consumed lived inside that machine, their life force fueling its eternal hunger. Gasps echoed through the humans. Even her daughters stepped back, whispering in fear. The Reaver was unleashed only when a species refused surrender entirely. Its purpose was simple, to erase not just bodies, but the very lineage of a race. To unmake their future. The queen's voice thundered, "I will cut humanity from history. Your children will never be born. Your blood will never carry forward. And the stars will forget you existed." The Reaver shrieked, its limbs tearing into the earth, sending waves of fire across the battlefield. The man stood firm. Though every instinct screamed to run, he planted his feet and raised his voice so all could hear. "She thinks she can erase us. But listen, our future is not hers to take. It is ours to fight for." The crowd roared, their voices rising like a wall. The Reaver struck, its limbs crashing down, but humans surged forward with whatever they held, rifles, blades, even bare fists. They were no match for its size, but they were more than the queen had calculated. They were no longer afraid. The man charged at the Reaver, weaving through fire and debris. Its cables lashed out, wrapping around him, trying to pierce his body and drain his life into its core. But as they stabbed his scarred chest, something strange happened. Instead of draining him, the glow of the broken seal fought back. His blood rejected the machine's hunger. Sparks flew and the Reaver screamed as its own veins caught fire. The humans cheered, striking harder, emboldened by the sight. The queen's eyes widened. For the first time in centuries, her ultimate weapon recoiled. She slammed her claws against the ground, forcing the Reaver forward, but its limbs shivered against the man's resistance. He gritted his teeth, his voice rising with each step he forced toward the core. "You think you can erase us? Then erase this!" With a roar, he plunged his scarred hands into the Reaver's glowing heart. The seal's mark on his chest flared like a second sun, and the machine convulsed violently. Its stolen energy, millions of voices, millions of enslaved species screamed as they were freed in a wave of light. The Reaver collapsed, its limbs thrashing once before crumbling into ash. The battlefield fell silent. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the humans erupted in cries of triumph. The queen staggered back, her cloak whipping like a storm. Fury unlike any before twisted her face. "You dare undo my conquest?" she roared. Her crown cracked under the force of her rage. "I will not allow this. I will end you with my own hands." She leapt forward faster than any storm, her claws cutting through the air toward him. He barely raised his arms when her strike landed, throwing him across the ruins. His body slammed into stone, blood spilling, bones shattering. The humans screamed his name, rushing to his side. But even as he lay broken, his eyes still burned. He forced himself up, blood dripping, and looked at the queen directly. "You can break my body," he rasped, "but you will never break my people." The queen froze, not because of his words, but because in that instant behind him the humans rose again. Thousands of them, battered but burning with fire. For every fall, 10 more stood. And for the first time in her reign, the queen felt it. Not anger, not hatred, but dread, because she realized the truth. She was not fighting one man anymore. She was fighting humanity itself. The battlefield was no longer Earth, it was something greater, something cosmic. Fires turned the night into a furnace, and the broken city became an arena where history itself held its breath. The queen stood at the center, her silver crown cracked, her cloak torn by the battle's fury. Around her, her daughters watched in silence, their faces pale. Never in their immortal lives had they seen their mother falter. The man staggered back to his feet, his body battered, ribs broken, blood dripping down his arms. Yet when his people cried for him to rest, he shook his head. His chest glowed faintly where the seal's scar burned brighter, like a torch in the dark. Every step he took forward, the humans behind him stepped too. His weakness did not make them fear, it made them stronger. For if he could still rise, then so could they. The queen hissed, her voice sharp as lightning. "You are dust, human. Your bones will break, your flesh will rot, and your people will burn. Do you think your defiance changes anything? I am eternal." He stared at her with eyes that carried no crown, no throne, only humanity. His voice came like thunder rolling through every ruin. No empire is eternal. Not yours. Not anyone's, but hope. Hope survives longer than any throne. The words rippled across the battlefield. Soldiers banged their weapons against the ground. Prisoners in distant camps lifted their heads, feeling the tremor of something greater than chains. Even the Queen's daughter shifted uneasily as if her reign of terror was cracking under the weight of those words. The Queen screamed, unleashing her full fury. Her body surged with energy stolen from 1,000 conquered worlds. She grew taller, her form stretching with power, her claws like spears, her eyes burning like suns. The earth itself split as her energy poured out, crushing buildings into dust. She struck at him, but when her claw descended, it did not strike just one man. A wall of humans surged forward, forming a shield around him. Soldiers, civilians, children clutching scraps of metal. Every one of them stood, their bodies trembling but unyielding. The Queen's claws tore through them, yet they did not scatter. For everyone who fell, 3 more stood in their place. The man pushed through the crowd, his body limping, his hands shaking. He faced her once more, raising nothing but his own scarred fists. "This is not my fight alone," he said. His voice broke, but his eyes did not. "This is humanity's fight, and we will not kneel." The ground shook as the people roared behind him. Their voices rose together, shaking the stars, drowning out even the Queen's fury. It was not just sound, it was a force. A declaration. The Queen faltered. For the first time, she felt her power pushed back not by weapons but by will. Her throne, her empire, her seal. It all trembled before the unstoppable tide of belief. The man leapt forward, fueled not by strength, but by the weight of every voice behind him. His fist struck her chest, and the glow of the broken seal burned through her armor. The light spread like fire, cracking her silver body. She screamed, her roar shaking the heavens, but she could not contain it. The power she had stolen for centuries poured out, ripped free by his defiance. Her daughters cried out as her crown shattered. Her body split, and the energy of 1,000 enslaved worlds erupted into the sky. The Queen staggered, her claws reaching for him one last time, but her strength failed. "You cannot erase me," she gasped. The man stood before her, trembling but unbroken. He whispered, his words carrying to every ear, human and alien alike. "No, Queen, you erased yourself the moment you believed we would kneel." With that, her body burst into light. The sky ignited with the souls of freed worlds, their voices singing like thunder, their chains shattering across the stars. The Queen was gone. Her daughters fled into the shadows, their eyes wide with fear, their empire broken. Silence fell. The humans looked around at the ruins, at the fires, at the ash of their enemy's throne, and then they looked at him. The man who had torn the contract, who had broken the seal, who had faced the Queen herself. He swayed, his body at its limit, but he did not fall. He raised his hand, not in victory, but in promise. His voice was soft, yet it carried like dawn across the battlefield. "This is not the end. This is our beginning. The stars will no longer be chains. They will be our road." The crowd erupted, their voices echoing into the night. For the first time, the earth did not sound like a dying world. It sounded alive, unbroken, unafraid. And as the scar on his chest pulsed one last time, the humans knew. Their story had only just started. Yet in the ruins, people whispered his name like a prayer. He had no title, no army, but when he walked, hope followed. Children peeked from shelters, holding scraps of bread. Old men touched their foreheads in silent respect. Soldiers, bruised and bloodied, saluted him, though he had never worn their uniform. He was not their leader, but he was the voice they had been waiting for. One night, as the fires dimmed and the stars returned, a scout rushed to him. Her voice trembled with fear. "They're saying the Queen herself is coming. Not her daughters, not her emissaries. The Queen." The word struck the camp like a hammer. Some gasped, some wept. The Queen was a myth to most, a shadow that ruled the stars. If she came, it meant she saw this human as a threat worth her personal hand. The man looked at the stars above. His silence stretched long enough that the people around him grew still. Finally he spoke. "Then she will see for herself what humans are made of." The Queen landed not with fleets but with a single ship of black iron. The ground shook as its claws tore into the earth. The air bent around it, heavy and sharp, as if the planet itself was forced to bow. From the vessel stepped the Queen, taller than any soldier, her silver skin glowing with a cruel beauty, her crown carved from the bones of defeated kings. Her eyes, cold and bright, fell directly on him. She did not speak to the generals, nor the soldiers, nor the refugees who cowered. She walked straight toward him, each step echoing like thunder. When she stood before him, the world seemed to hold its breath. "You are the one who tore my contract," she said. Her voice was velvet, but every word carried knives. "Do you know what you have done, human? You have insulted my empire. You have mocked my throne. You have defied a force older than your species. And for what? For your pride?" The man did not flinch. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with ash, but his eyes were steady. "I tore your chains," he answered. "No human belongs to you. Not in flesh. Not in blood. Not in soul." The queen tilted her head, studying him. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a threat. "I could crush you with a thought. Your bones would splinter before you even raised a hand. Yet you stand. Tell me, human, is it courage or madness?" He stepped closer, so close her shadow fell over him like a mountain. "It is humanity," he said simply. The soldiers behind him held their breath. The queen's hands twitched, her claws shining. But instead of striking, she laughed. A laugh that rolled like thunder across the ruins. "You think your defiance is power? Very well, then prove it. Not with words. Not with fire. With blood." She raised her arm, and from her ship descended a chamber made of living metal. It pulsed like a heart, glowing with alien light. Inside, the walls were carved with contracts of blood, each binding a conquered world. "This is my reproductive seal," she declared. "Every species I have claimed has entered it. Once signed, their bloodline is mine forever. Step inside, human, and I will show you what it means to defy me." The crowd gasped. The man stared at the chamber, the whispers of the enslaved echoing from its walls. He knew what it meant, a trap designed not to kill him but to break him. He took a breath, his fists tightening. The silence stretched. The queen's eyes gleamed, certain he would hesitate, certain he would fear, but instead he stepped forward. The humans around him shouted, begged, pleaded, but he kept walking, every step a hammer against destiny. When he reached the edge of the chamber, he turned once to his people and spoke, his voice steady. "Do not fear her chains. Fear only losing yourselves." Then he entered. The door sealed shut, and the queen smiled, for in her mind the game had only just begun. The chamber closed around him like the jaws of a beast. Its walls pulsed with alien veins of silver and red, each contract alive with whispers of thousands of broken species. Their voices echoed in his ears, cries of surrender, laments of entire civilizations bent under the queen's will. The air inside was thick, heavy, like it was trying to crush his lungs with every breath. The queen's silhouette filled the doorway before it sealed. Her voice slithered into the chamber, rich and cruel. "Here, human, your blood will be written into my seal. When you sign not with ink but with life itself, your kind will belong to me. You will reproduce as my empire commands. You will serve as cattle, as seed, as property, and your name will be forgotten just as all before you." The walls glowed brighter, streams of liquid light forming symbols that circled him like chains. They cut into his skin without touching, searching for weakness in his blood and his will. He clenched his fists, his body trembling as the alien force tried to bend him. But instead of breaking, he laughed. The sound startled even the queen. She narrowed her eyes, watching from outside the chamber. "Why do you laugh when death and bondage surround you?" His voice was steady, calm like stone. "Because you do not understand us. You think contracts bind us, that fear rules us. But chains mean nothing if the heart refuses them." The chamber hissed, tightening its grip. Symbols stabbed deeper into his skin, searing him with alien fire. The whispers grew louder, thousands of voices urging him to surrender. Images of crushed empires flashed before his eyes, showing him how hopeless it was to resist. Yet in that storm of despair, his mind traveled back, not to victories, not to power, but to the faces of his people. The child who had given him half a piece of bread, the soldier who had saluted him even when bleeding, the mother who had whispered, "Don't let them take us." Their faces became his shield, their hope became his fire, and with a roar that shook the chamber, he tore the glowing symbols apart with his own will. His blood did not bow, it burned. The walls screamed as cracks spread across the chamber, the alien metal fighting to contain him but failing. The seal had never been broken in all of history, but now, for the first time, it trembled. Outside, the queen rose from her throne, her crown rattling with fury. "Impossible," she hissed. Her daughters, watching from the shadows, stared with wide, fearful eyes. No species had ever resisted the seal. Yet this one man, this human, was tearing it apart with sheer defiance. The chamber walls shattered in a burst of light. Fragments of glowing contracts rained down like dying stars. The man stepped out, his chest scarred with burning marks that glowed faintly, but his eyes sharper than ever. He looked at the queen directly, unflinching. "You want to own us?" he said, his voice raw but thunderous. "Then know this, we cannot be owned. Not by chains, not by blood, not by your throne." The soldiers behind him roared, their fear transforming into fire. Even the prisoners watching from across the ruined city lifted their heads. Word spread like a storm. The seal was broken. The queen's fury shook the air. Lightning crackled around her as she raised her clawed hands. "You fool! You think breaking one seal saves you? You have doomed your species. My wrath will burn your world until not even ash remains." The man stood tall, battered yet unbroken. "Then burn it," he said, "but you will never burn us." For a moment, silence swallowed the battlefield. The queen's armies, her daughters, her war machines all waited for her command. But in her chest beneath her fury, a seed of fear grew. She had seen countless rebellions, countless flames of defiance, but none like this. This was not rebellion. This was something else, something she could not yet name. And in that silence, a strange thing happened. The scar on his chest, where the seal had tried to bind him, began to glow. Not with alien fire, but with a new light. Something pure. Something entirely human. It pulsed like a heart, echoing through the ruins, felt by every survivor, every fighter, every prisoner. It was no longer just his fight. It was humanity's heartbeat made visible. The queen's smile faltered for the first time in her reign. Her empire had met its first true wall. Not an army. Not a weapon. A man who refused to kneel. And as the night burned with fire, she realized something terrifying. This war would not end with her victory. It would end with her throne shaking. The night sky above Earth bled with fire. Alien warships rained destruction, their beams slicing mountains and rivers alike. Yet in the ruins below, humans did not cower as they once had. They stood taller, their voices louder, for they had seen something impossible. The seal broken, the queen defied. But the queen herself did not retreat. She descended further, her cloak dragging shadows across the ruined city. Each step cracked the ground as if the planet trembled beneath her fury. Her daughters followed, armored and armed, their silver faces pale with unease. For though their mother's wrath was legendary, even they could not erase the image of the man who had walked free from the unbreakable chamber. The man stood at the center of the ruins, scars glowing faintly on his chest, his body bruised but unbowed. Around him, soldiers and civilians gathered, their weapons crude compared to the queen's empire, but their spirits burning. They looked at him not as a general, not as a leader chosen by bloodlines, but as the beating heart of their survival. The queen raised her clawed hand, silencing the battlefield. Her voice cut through the smoke like a blade. "You are a mistake of the universe," she declared. "I have conquered empires older than your son. I have erased civilizations whose names you will never know. And yet you, human, think your defiance means anything." He did not answer with words at first. He simply stepped forward, placing himself between the queen and the crowd. His silence spoke louder than thunder. "Welcome to Earthborn Valor, where humanity's greatest battles are told in stories of fire, courage, and defiance. Today, witness the moment an alien queen believed humans would kneel, until one man tore apart her reproductive contract and ignited a war that changed everything. If you love powerful HFY Sci-Fi stories filled with suspense, emotion, and epic twists, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Earthborn Valor, and join our growing community of listeners. Your support helps us bring more unique and thrilling tales to life. Don't forget to drop a comment sharing your favorite moment. And hit the bell icon so you never miss what comes next. The alien fleets had darkened the skies, and humanity's last cities trembled under their shadows. The queen of the invaders had declared that the war was over before it had even begun. She had sent down her contracts, her orders, her so-called treaties written in alien script. Papers that demanded human submission not through weapons, but through surrender of bloodlines. Every human leader who read them fell silent, because they understood what was hidden inside. An attempt to bind mankind into alien reproduction, to turn humans into property of the queen's throne. Yet one man sat in the war room silent while the others argued. His name carried little weight among generals, but his eyes burned in ways none could ignore. He studied the contract for hours, each alien symbol twisting like a chain meant to lock his species forever. The Queen believed humans would talk, bargain, and kneel, because that was all her enemies had ever done. She never expected a human to defy her in ways no empire had seen before. The first attacks had already turned Earth's defenses into smoke. Alien crafts cut through the sky like fire, and every resistance fighter whispered the same fear. This war was not winnable. But still, ordinary men and women rose up. In villages, in ruined cities, in deserts and mountain caves, they refused to bow. And it was in this storm that the unknown man walked forward, not as a soldier, but as something else, something the aliens could not measure in their equations of power. When the Queen's emissaries landed, carrying their shimmering tablets that glowed with the authority of her rule, the generals hesitated. Some thought to sign, some thought to stall. But the man stepped up and held the contract in his hands. His silence drew the room into a sharp stillness. The emissary smirked, already believing the human's hesitation was weakness. The man tore the contract apart. Not slowly, not with ceremony. He ripped it into shreds, the pieces scattering across the war table like broken chains. The room gasped. The emissary hissed, unable to understand how a species so battered could dare to insult the Queen's will. That single act echoed louder than any battle. Soldiers whispered of it that night. Refugees carried the story across broken highways. Even in the alien camps where human prisoners labored, the rumor spread like fire. One human had torn apart the Queen's command. The war did not change overnight. Cities still burned, armies still fell. But the Queen herself, seated on her throne of silver thorns in the orbiting dreadnought, leaned forward when she heard the report. For the first time in her long reign, she felt curiosity mixed with unease. A contract had been shredded, and with it something deeper than law had been broken. And so the Queen marked the man's name into her records. She told herself he was just one stubborn human, soon to be crushed. Yet in her heart a question lingered. If humans could not be bound by her contracts, then what force was it that kept them standing, even as the universe demanded their surrender? That night, as fire lit the sky, the man stood on the ruined balcony of a collapsed tower, watching alien crafts swarm above. He whispered only one promise, not to the generals, not to the soldiers, but to the billions of frightened souls hiding underground. We are not property. We are not theirs to breed. This war begins now. And the silence of the night trembled, as if the earth itself heard him. The Queen's warships floated above Earth like silent predators, their shadows covering oceans and continents alike. After the contract was torn, nothing felt the same. To the generals, it seemed reckless. To the soldiers, it was a spark. But to the Queen, it was an insult she could not allow to go unanswered. She wanted to crush not just the man, but the idea he had created. Her command rippled across the stars, and the fleet descended with fury. Entire districts vanished under white fire. Towers collapsed like sand. Human forces scrambled, yet they did not scatter the way the Queen expected. They fought harder, as if that one act of rebellion had unlocked a strength no weapon could match. The man who had shredded the contract walked through the ruins like a shadow himself. He was not a general, not a king, not a man of wealth or politics. He carried no crown, only scars of battles survived. But everywhere he stepped, humans followed. Soldiers who had lost their commanders looked to him. Civilians who had lost hope saw in him something unbreakable. He did not command them with orders. He commanded them with silence, with eyes that burned against the endless dark. The Queen watched him from her throne aboard the dreadnought. Her eyes, cold and bright, narrowed as she studied the human through recordings sent by her spies. He did not bow. He did not beg. His refusal was not born from arrogance, but from something older, something deeper. Her empires had conquered countless worlds, each bending after a single show of force. But this world, this small blue planet, was different. She sent her daughters, warriors carved in her image, to test him. They descended in silver armor, their presence meant to strike fear. But when they arrived at the ruins of the capital, the man stood waiting. His hands were empty. No weapon, no army, no shield. Only fire in his chest. The first daughter spoke, her voice sharp as iron. "Human, you cannot win. Your world is already ash. The Queen offers you mercy if you accept her terms." The man stepped forward. His voice was calm, steady, yet it carried like thunder across the broken streets. Mercy? You burn our homes, chain our people, and speak of mercy? Tell your queen this. She can take our cities, but she cannot take our will. She can slaughter us, but she cannot own us. The daughter's smile faltered. She raised her weapon. But the man did not flinch. Behind him, thousands of humans rose from the rubble, weapons scavenged from broken ships, courage drawn from the simple truth he had spoken. The first daughter attacked, and the battle began. Her strikes cut through concrete. Her blade shimmered with alien light. Yet every time she struck, the man moved as if guided by something beyond instinct. He fought not for victory, but for defiance. Each time he dodged, each time he countered, the humans behind him roared louder. The queen watched, her claws digging into the arms of her throne. She had never seen a human before this war. To her, they were supposed to be weak creatures, fragile, too young in the galactic order to matter. But now she was forced to witness something impossible, a species refusing to kneel even at the edge of extinction. The daughter fell, not killed but defeated. She was dragged back by her sisters, their silver armor cracked and smeared with dust. The man stood, his chest heaving, his clothes torn but his spirit unshaken. He raised his hand not in victory but in defiance, and the people around him roared like thunder. That roar traveled further than the queen could contain. In the camps where humans were held, prisoners whispered of freedom. In the skies, pilots who had thought of desertion turned their ships back toward the fight. In the hidden bunkers, scientists who had buried their projects began to work again, faster, harder. And deep within her ship, the queen felt something she had not felt in centuries. Not anger, not pride, fear, because she realized the man had given the humans something stronger than weapons. He had given them a reason to fight until the last breath. The queen ordered her armies to double their assault. She commanded new contracts to be written, more vicious, more cruel, but she could not erase the image that now haunted her. A single human tearing apart the destiny she thought she controlled. And as the dreadnought loomed larger in the skies, humanity whispered a single vow, carried on every wind, across every broken city. This war is not lost. It has only just begun. The queen could not sleep, not because her throne room was silent, but because her silence was no longer the silence of victory. For the first time in centuries, whispers of resistance scratched inside her skull. She had crushed countless empires before. Entire species had signed her contracts willingly once they saw her fleets. Yet these humans, so small, so fragile, refused. Worse, they refused with a kind of fire that spread faster than her armies could stamp out. In the dark of her dreadnought chamber, she stood before the great window, gazing at the earth below. Fires painted the continents in shades of red. Oceans boiled under her war machines. But there was one ember she could not extinguish: the man who tore her contract. She whispered his name, tasting it like poison on her tongue. Her advisors warned her, "Do not go down there yourself, Majesty. It lowers your throne. It risks your rule." But she silenced them with one cold glance. This human must be broken by my own hand. If his defiance spreads any further, he will be more dangerous than 1,000 armies. And so, in secret, the queen prepared to descend. On Earth, the man walked through the broken skeleton of the capital city. Towers that once touched the sky now lay like cracked bones across the land. Smoke and dust burned the air.